Hello everyone, the video I'm going to show you today is how to make the pom-poms really in a different colour to your main yarn, but how to make the pom-poms as well if you want to do it all in one colour for the Snow Queen cardigan. It's a cardigan that comes in two different patterns. One is a hoodie and one is a cardigan with a collar and a little hat. So here are my pom-poms. I've done it in a nice contrasting yarn so you can see what I want to show you. Here's one that I did earlier in true Blue Peter fashion, and as you can see here the yarn is strung across between the bobbles. We don't really want that because little fingers can get caught in them, they can get pulled, it's just not very nice. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to strand your yarn across so that you don't get those big loops. It's just like having an ordinary stitch going across. So you need two colours. If you're doing, obviously if you're doing it in two colours, if you're only using it in one colour, then you just do the one colour. And I'm going to start the second row of pom-poms. There's two rows for the first two sizes and there's an extra row for the third size. So knit the first stitch and then I'm going to make my bobble into the second stitch. Now the problem with stranding the yarn across is that you can get into a bit of a pickle with the yarn catching on each other and becoming a little bit of a mess at the back. So I'm hopefully going to try and show you how to stop that happening. If not completely, how to stop it happening quite a bit. So I've got my contrasting yarn. I've left quite a long end because I will need to tie and secure that bobble in. And I need to knit one, purl one, knit one, and purl one, all into the same stitch. So what was one stitch has now become four. As you can see, it's quite loose there. Don't worry about that. That will sort itself out when you start going. So I've turned my needles and I'm now just going to work on these four copper stitches. So I need to knit four. 2, 3, 4. This last stitch is going to be loose because I haven't tied it in yet. You could tie that in, you could sew that in now if you wanted to stop it being loose, but if you've left it a long enough piece of yarn, it won't make any difference. Turn your yarn over, and when you're turning your yarn, if you turn it alternate directions, then it's not going to get too tangled up. So I've done one row there, so I now need to do the second row, which is a purl row. Purl those 4 stitches. And now I'm going to start decreasing my pom-poms, so I turn them again. The alternate doesn't actually matter on this part, it's on the next part that it's more important. And then I'm going to knit 2 together. I am keeping quite a good tension on my bobble yarn because you don't want it to be too loose. You want it to be quite neat and tidy. So I've turned it again and I'm now going to knit these 2 stitches together. When you start knitting with the contrasting yarn, you need to make sure it's at the back when you're doing a knit and at the front when you're doing a purl, otherwise it can get wrapped around your needle. So there's my first bobble made. This loose bit here is because of that starting bit, which we'll sort out once we've done the row. So I'll get myself in a bit of a pickle here with the ends. So now we're going to work the rest of the row. So we need to knit 5 stitches in the main colour. So I go into the next stitch. As you can see, my yarns are a little bit twisted at the moment, so I'm going to just make sure that I untwist them before I start. And I need to knit with the white. Give that a good pull because it's got to go over 2 stitches, so you want to make sure that that's quite tight. Now, what I want to do is I want to catch the copper with the white before I do the next stitch. So put the copper over and knit with the white. We're now going to do the same, but this time we're going to twist it back the other way and knit with the white. Now we're going to go that way and knit with the white, and now we're going to go that way and knit with the white. And as you can see, my yarn is still at the moment relatively untangled together. Now I've come to my next bobble, so I'm going to leave the white and I'm going to pick up the copper again, and I just do the same. So I knit, purl, knit, purl into that next stitch, and I'm going to turn and I'm going to knit 4, I'm going to turn again and I'm going to purl 4. Sorry, I had to pull a bit of yarn out. I'm going to purl 4. I'm going to turn again. I'm trying to keep that copper on the top, to try and keep it untangled. Now I'm going to knit 2 together and knit 2 together. I'm going to turn for the last time. And I'm going to knit 2 together. As you can see, my pom-pom, my bobble, has gone to the back of the work. So make sure it sits on the front. You obviously want your bobbles to show. You don't want them to be hidden. If you forget and there's one that's pushed back, we could always sort that out afterwards. You get a knitting needle and just push it through, or just push it through. There's a big enough hole. Right, so now we're going to do the wrapping again. So again, my yarn is untangled at the moment. My yarns are untangled at the moment. So I'm going to knit the next stitch, and I'm going to give it a good pull so that it covers over the 2 stitches that it had to go. And I'm going to bring the copper yarn under and knit the next stitch, and then I'm going to take the copper yarn over and knit the next stitch. Copper yarn under and over. It's still going over, but it's just going over in the other direction, and then take it over, going clockwise, and you've done your 5, and there's your nice neat back. If you don't like the under and over, or it takes you a bit too long, you can just let it go, and I'll show you the next one not doing the under and over, and you'll see how you can get into a bit of a tangle. But then when you cut your yarn at the end, so knit 1, purl 1, I'm back to doing the bobble now, knit 1, purl 1, twist your yarn, and I'm not going to worry about how I'm twisting anything now. I'm just going to go with the flow. Knit 2, 3, 4, turn it, purl 1, purl 2, purl 3, purl 4, twist it, knit 2 together. What you've got to remember is I'm only doing a little sample here. You're going to have all your stitches for your backs and your fronts on the needle, so keeping it as untangled as possible is probably a good idea. And then knit 2 together, and there's my pom-pom. So now I'm going to carry on, and I'm just going to do it how I would normally do it, which is just wrapping it round in the same direction. Now you can see that my yarn is wrapped around each other now, so my only issue now is that it's getting enough yarn of the copper to allow me to knit the bobble, but you can pull it through quite easily. So it's up to you whether you do the wrapping in alternate directions or whether you do it in the one direction and deal with the tangling as you go. When you get to the end of the row, you have to cut your contrasting yarn. You can't, I suppose you could wrap it all the way back again, but you really wouldn't want to do that because you'd have to do that on a plain row, and you don't really want to do that. You'd be cutting it and tying off the ends on each row of bobbles. There's only 2 or 3 rows depending on what size you're doing, so that's not a major issue. So as I say, I'm not being very careful here. It's getting a little bit harder to keep my yarn coming freely, but you know, it's not a major issue if you can't cope with the wrapping in different directions. And I'll show you what I do when I get to the end of this if I haven't been a bit more careful. And then knit 2 together, and that's my last bobble for my little swatch. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to, again, leaving a fairly decent end, I'm just going to snip that off, and then you can then just pull that end out and get rid of it, because now you're just going to be knitting the rest of the row in white. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there we finished our bobbles. Okay, so now I'll show you how to deal with these ends. So get your sewing needle. There it is. And this is not my normal sewing needle. The eye is not very big, so I'll have to do for the purposes. Give that a little tug. You want to make sure that it's fairly tight, and then just sew around those 2 stitches and put it through the loop and pull as tight as you can. That end now is secure, but I like to make sure that it's doubly and triply secure, so I would be going through there again, and I would probably, for good measure, do it again. Oops. You can, if you wanted to, you could thread it back through these stitches and take it up the side. No, you can't, because it's all done in one piece, so you can't do that. You have to tie them off and then just snip it. So there you go, that's your end tied off and your bobbles nice and neatly. As I was saying, if one of the bobbles doesn't come to the front, yeah, you can get your knitting needle and just poke it through and pull it through, yeah, or you can just use your finger and pull it through. That's not something that you need to worry about until you've actually finished all your bobbles, and I hope that helps.